Secretary of Labor, Secretary Eugene Scalia. And if that name sounds familiar, he is the son of former Chief Justice Supreme Court Scalia, Anthony Scalia. And so it was kind of a walk down memory lane for me with him today a bit, telling him stories about his father that he never heard, and then hearing some from him as well. We started out in Saline this morning at the Saline High School, which is the location for their career center for Washtenaw County, west and east. And they do a great job there, and we've had a lot of success in training people for some of the real world jobs that are even there in the shadow of the University of Michigan, what goes on. So there we went to Jackson, had a chance to let him walk through a manufacturing facility that has expanded to the point they can't find enough employees to employ that are trained and capable, ready to do it. So we had a good time to hear from their concerns as well, and then had a roundtable meeting with a good number of manufacturers from Jackson County. And then from there we went to lunch. Then headed down to Adrian College. I just left him and heading back to the airport to meet him here. And Adrian College, I was just talking with Marty Marshall here about the fact that our two colleges, four-year colleges here, are doing very, very well for our community and bringing a lot in. Jackson Community College also adds to the base of capabilities we have to train people for real world jobs. But I wanted the Secretary of Labor to hear about what Adrian College is doing, starting with Google, now expanding out and beyond that, and to the point of having a curriculum opportunity that will allow them to expand the course offerings without expanding geometrically the cost to students. In fact, they've done the research on it, and it could reduce for the courses in the specific major that they're going to do. It will have online capabilities. It will have development by the businesses themselves, like Google, like Honeywell, Dell. Seeing some of the other names in my mind that are dominoes all across the spectrum, who will actually put the course material up themselves, help develop it with their own resources, and then train the college professors, whether it's Adrian College in the consortium or whether it's Albion College, train them to carry on in the classroom and have a real-world experience in the course designed for a particular entity that will make them capable of starting in the workplace, whether it's Google or Apple or Dell or Honeywell. I took a tour of Honeywell's Innovation Center last Friday in Washington. I was just amazed. I thought it was just Honeywell was thermostats. They're really not that anymore. They're everything else. It's amazing what they've expanded into. So those are the things that are taking place right here as a result of Adrian College in our own hometown. And I think the future of higher education is being seen in that type of thing. So it's good to have the Secretary of Labor. And he's only 2 months into his new job here after confirmation. This being one of the first trips out to see what's happening here in the 7th District, and more specifically here in Adrian. So that's been an interesting day thus far. Other things are going on in Washington. I wish there were more things going on in my committees that I'm on. I sit on Energy and Commerce still. Energy and Commerce is the oldest standing committee in all of Congress. It has the largest purview of anything in Congress. And their healthcare, their telecommunications, energy, environment, all of that is Energy and Commerce. And that's why I'm on that committee, because I want to do that type of work. But we're being hijacked, at least for a while.
Yes, we are, by a president
Hopefully
who
that
continues making news every day.
Well,
That That's distracting.
The distractions right now, I'm sad to say, are impeachment hearings. And
Those are good.
if you watch the impeachment hearings,
That's
you
good.
would have to conclude that they are distracting. When in fact, in the end, it'll be just like Clinton's impeachment.
That would be criminal.
It'll be just like that. And no one will be convicted. And we will have divided the country unnecessarily. When in fact, right now, let me just rehearse a
He's
few things.
guilty. He admitted it. Mulvaney admitted it.
Ma'am, we're going to have to go to the questions.
Vidman.
If we can't do it the right way.
Taylor.
Bottom line is,
Dr. Hill.
right now, what are you experiencing in the United States? The best economy in 50 plus years.
1.5 million, it better be
You-
good on the stock
You,
market.
ma'am, we can keep this up.
I am
not have a
not
town
going to
hall.
allow you to sugarcoat.
No, I'm going to tell, then you'll have a chance to ask the questions and make the comments. That's all we ask. Everyone else is abided by that. I appreciate it. We have these town halls, like most members of Congress don't have. I still have them. So we can offer people a chance, number one, to hear from me. And I don't expect, even though I've been elected, I don't expect everybody in the room to agree with me. I understand that. I understand.
Can I say something real quick? Ma'am, I don't like the guy either, but let the man talk.
Yes.
Okay, let me bring you up to date with what's going on. An economy that has 7 million jobs right now, waiting for somebody to fill those jobs, and nobody filled it. We've got 6.5 million people looking for jobs. We've got 7 million jobs. It's a pretty good economy. We've got an unemployment rate for African Americans, Asians, and Hispanics, the lowest since they've been keeping records ever in the United States. For females, we've got almost the lowest in the last 75 years. I mean, that's a good economy. Policies, whoever puts them forward. And I'm proud to say that I voted for those policies and led some of those policies, in fact, two regulatory reforms to the president's side that I offered. Tax cuts proposal that ultimately passed, signed into law, has had significant impact. We want to see people working. We want to see people having upward and mobile opportunities. And right now, all of the stats, not coming from the president, but coming from CBO and others, indicate that the standard wage of the middle-income, working-class people has advanced the largest percentage of any of them. And that's what we want. Those are the facts. So those things are working. We have military that's being paid. We have military equipment that's being acquired. We have maintenance that's being done. We hope that that doesn't change because we have a Defense Authorization Act that is being held up in the House, thus far from being even reviewed and voted on. Otherwise, I would be voting for it. I'd like to see that, which also has pay increases for military families. So those are the things that are happening. The other stuff that's happening outside, a lot of static that's out there, is causing the challenges that we have in moving forward. So committees like Energy and Commerce, we're not meeting and doing markups of bills to speak of. By this time, in the last term of office, which was the first year of President Trump's administration, we had passed and signed into law just a little less than 300 pieces of legislation. In order to do that, it had to be bipartisan, because they had to get to the Senate as well. Chuck Schumer couldn't hold those up, or didn't hold those up, so they got them through. This year, we have now over 60 subpoenas and 47 bills that have been signed.
Good.
Now that's a problem when you have the House Representatives holding back legislation from moving forward. So that's a concern that we have. Impeachment hearings are going on in a committee where they're not supposed to be going on. It's supposed to be in judiciary. But for some reason, I'll leave that to your interpretation, it was put in the Intelligence Committee. very little due process carried out, unlike what was done with Nixon, with Clinton. The president's attorney was not allowed into the room. There was no due process given to them to carry out. The minority was not allowed to even bring our own witnesses in. Until this last week, when they were offered the opportunity to put a list together, but the key witnesses we asked for to be on were not allowed. And so what was brought in? The same old that had already been in the underground, literally underground, third floor underneath the Capitol, intelligence room, that even I, as a member of Congress with top security clearance, was not allowed to go in and hear. That's unheard of. Committees I chaired, we allowed members who didn't sit on my committee to wave on and sit in the room. They couldn't ask any questions till all of the committee members had asked their questions. But then they could ask questions. So we've seen stuff take place here that really don't go according to rule or tradition in the U.S. House of Representatives. And that's all we're asking for, fair consideration. Don't like the president? You ought to like his policies. You like the country moving forward, which some people don't want the country to move forward, I guess, then you won't like the president. That being, I guess, all I want to say up front here, other than make sure I don't forget to say, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. This is still a wonderful country, and we are blessed to live here.
We're blessed to have a constitution.
And we have a constitution, and that's what I'm blessed to say. This country, different than any other country, we have a constitution that, if used, will work.
It is being used.
Okay, let's go to some questions, and you'll help get the hands as they go up.
Right back here.
Mine's a simple one, but first I would like to say, I want to thank everybody in this room because you care about Montgomery County and the people of Montgomery County. Representative Walberg, everyone, my thanks and to all the volunteers. An observation I had was, I thought, considering all the flags I see, it's just an observation. There was only like special election, 2,000 people or something. That's not right. And that's all I want to say about that. And bless you all for being here and trying to do things about it. Now, I walked this town 3.5 years, I didn't have a car. So I've been to every street, believe me, I know it. My question is, we're one of the most unique cities in the country, in the world. And the reason we're unique, nobody even talks about. Superfund closure. We're one of the only few cities, Superfund sites that's ever closed without being bankrupt. I don't see a sign. I don't hear the pride. They're talking, you guys, everybody, we're trying to work and save the planet for people. The people of Adrian, the government, first off, I can feel the power of the government when it lands on top of you, because Mr. Dingle did not like Amos R. Anderson, and that got pushed pretty hard. But we closed it, we worked with it, we used people and locations and things here. And I just want to say, I don't see a sign. I see baseball people, I see Croswell. What about that? Isn't that just, Representative, isn't that just one of the most marvelous things this state did?
Well, I remember when that all began. I first, back in 1982.
That's all?
When in the state legislature. I remember meeting Amos Anderson back then. The cleanup started, and it went on for quite a few years. There's still a site out there. You're not going to be able to build anything on it, but it's protected off, and it's worked.
I worked there.
But
Did all that.
those are things. I don't know of any community in the United States that advertises we were once a Superfund site, because I think they want everybody to forget about that. They want to think this is a great community to go on. We never had a chemical problem. We never had something we had to clean
Well,
up.
it is a great community, but they should be proud of that.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with you. We're proud it was done. We took care of it, and I think we're ready.
And the
to go.
business is still here.
The business is still here, and that's
What you're all about. You guys, the Republicans are all about, let's have business.
Yeah.
That business is still here.
And we applaud it, and I spend time just
Oh, sure you do.
recently walking through Anderson. But again, I don't think we put signs up saying former Superfund site.
I'm not quite saying that necessarily, but why not? If we finished it, are you talking about
Because you've
fixing
got
problems?
You've got the same problem that Flint has now. They've done a lot of cleanup, but it's going to be a long, long time before
Well,
anybody
sad.
feels like moving into Flint.
I'm
Why?
from Flint.
Why? Because they had that lead problem. And even though it's cleaned up, and even though people in most of Flint now can drink the water, and they're still cleaning up, it put that power on. It's going to be difficult. Now
Well, that's what it's about, that power.
we have PFAS in communities here in my district. That problem that we're going to attempt to clean up, and that's going to be a big issue as well. Something we found out we never expected. PFAS, and we have to deal with it. So no, I appreciate Anderson staying. I appreciate the cleanup that took place. I appreciate all the employees that weathered that. I appreciate the community around it that were concerned about what that might mean for their life, what effect on their bodies, etc. But I think that's probably why.
And they utilized Adrian College and Siena Heights to help get to the problems. And you're talking about innovation. You've got two of the greatest universities, or colleges, universities in the state, right here.
Sure do.
You got problems?
And
Let them solve
we're going to hold them up. Yeah.
it. Yes, let them solve
Let's go on to the next question.
I guess my first one is, roads. Our roads are horrible. They're a joke. I worked in Ohio, and you talk to anybody, I mean, at a, average everyday person level, and our roads are a joke. There are movies that are filmed in this state, and it's become a game now where you can spot what parts of movies are filmed in the state by the condition of the roads. Look at the roads, if they look like crap, and they're all covered in black squiggly lines with patching instead of paving, that's Michigan. That's sad.
And that's something that the state legislature is wrestling with, trying to come up with how to do that. The federal highway dollars, at least the state knows what the feds have given them. We passed that legislation. That was passed under Obama as well, and then followed up by Trump, making sure that we had the Highway Trust Fund dollars in place so that Michigan and any other states knew what federal dollars were coming and they could plan on that. We want to keep doing that. I know that this president wants an infrastructure bill to go through. Why hasn't that gone through?
Because he chased
Because all of the rest has been held up. When you can't get through, because of being held up by Chuck Schumer in the Senate, a number of issues, including health care reform, the tax bill, we have to go around that. And we can't do that with the infrastructure bill. This president's a builder. I think one of the things he wants to do, more than anything else, is do roads, bridges, telecommunications infrastructure as well. Get that in place. Almost be the modern Dwight D. Eisenhower.
What is the time frame we're looking at on this, though? I mean, no offense, and I'm not saying anything bad about it, but we hear it a lot, and the roads are still not done. If it was looked at, looked into by Obama, he's been out of office for a while now, and nothing's still being done.
No, the dollars are there from the federal government. So that's why I say you need to talk to the state and the locals. But the problem with that, when you have a governor who says, fix the roads, well, yeah, but most of those roads are being fixed, but what are those roads? Those are state roads. They're not going to come to your street here in Adrian unless dollars are taken from their budgets that are allocated from various levels, and they have to fix those. So you'll see the orange cones all over our state highways, as we're seeing now, 94, 75, 275, you name it. They're there. We don't even have the ability to use all of the funds for those particular roads that we have available. The issue is now how you transfer those down to the locals. And I contend the more dollars we allow to stay at the local level as opposed to sending them to Lansing or Washington, the better chance we'll have for Marty Marshall here at the county and the local city officials to get things done.
All politics are local.
That's not to say that we shouldn't be looking at upgrading across the United States the funding of our federal highway system, and then leaving dollars through the fuel funds back at the states so they can be administered at the state and local level. But right now, that's more of a local and state issue.
Can I add something into that?
Sure, why not?
Well, don't have to be rude, I know I was.
No, I wasn't being
when
rude. I said,
apologize.
sure, why not?
But anyways,
I'd rather have you doing it that way than what you're doing before.
I grew up in Flood. I was born there. My father was a police officer. And then when he was forced to be retired for medical reasons, we moved back to the UP. To the point of the roads, the UP, I have family in Gwynn, Marquette, Little Lake, around Marquette County. The roads are beautiful. And I'm talking in the city. So, sir, I'd like to ask you to definitely stay on top of your local politicians, because it is a local issue.
And that, of
when
course,
you're looking at times.
if you talk to our local state representative and senators from the southern part of the state, they'll say that's why we need to change the road funding formula, because it's based upon a mileage formula that gives, even though there's very few people in the UP. And that's why those of us that love to go up to Marquette and other places, we experience good roads, but a lot less traffic on those roads. And down here, you got all the traffic and same money as you get for a mile of road in the UP's got to fix this here. So we need to change the formula, but that's a political challenge. And I don't envy the state legislature trying to
Well,
do it.
on Marquette County, have you heard about the turnabouts? My stepfather passed away in October. We went up, and there's all these turnarounds.
Oh, we're getting more down here too, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I got lost. And I grew up there.
Another question?
Another question. I see yellow slip here.
Yep.
So I'm a Santa Heights University student myself, and I'm a psychology major. I'm a junior. The question I have is, will the students be receiving their machine coaching grant? Because that has been taken away from us.
You need to talk to the governor. She vetoed it.
Probably was something else in the bill that made her veto it.
She vetoed, that was part of her funding formula. She vetoed, I forget how many items, a lot of
Because there
things,
was something else.
including rural hospital funding, student
There's a lot of students
grants.
that rely on
She vetoed some opioid centers that we've been working on, and she was there for ribbon cutting or groundbreaking. Vetoed that. So you're going to have to ask her. I mean, Adrian and CNH University, we're talking several $1 million of impact. And these are on students who are financially challenged students, let's put it that way. They have to meet a certain requirement. And these are funding sources, scholarships that we've put in place for years for Republican and Democrat administrations. I mean, when I was in the legislature, that was a battle to make sure you kept those dollars because they showed impact. To get students into these type of universities, liberal arts colleges, and not have to say I can't go because of the finances. Qualified students, academically, otherwise, these scholarship programs help. Governor vetoed them, so you'll have to talk to our state legislators, and between them and our governor, they're going to have to work out an agreement.
I do have a second question. Can you elaborate on what you can do to help us as an Adrians in the community? Like, what questions can we ask you that you might be able to give us a direct answer now? Because it seems that most of the questions that we're asking you, you're saying go to our government or go to our local instead of.
Ask me anything on a federal issue.
One, I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Matt Swartzlander, Executive Director of the Adrian Area Chamber. And as a business association, we represent a lot of different businesses and work with a lot of different levels of government. One of the most important things that as citizens that we can learn is what level of government we need to go to address an issue. So, with Congressman here, and the roads is obviously a huge issue. He's only gonna deal with, like you said, the state highway, or the big highways in the area. So little of that money is gonna come here into Lenawee County, except for some various projects. But to understand that we have different levels of township, city, different villages, the county government, state government, and federal. All different levels deal with different topics, and as citizens, as voters, if we can educate ourselves on what happens at each one of those levels, and who represents us at each one of those levels,
Civics.
the better off we are gonna be as a community.
This is
That
old
would be
Civics
great.
101,
Yep.
or social studies in my day,
Yeah, absolutely.
back in the 60s.
Great to hear.
It was the key to know, and again, going back to the Constitution. The Constitution was established to make it clear that the most important government levels to you in your life were the local and the state, and the powers that Congress had outside of what was given us specifically in the Constitution, we derive from the states. So really, the most important government in your life should not be the federal government. It should be the state and local. That's how it was intended. Sadly, that's devolved over the years, or evolved over the years, to the fact the federal government has more to say than we shouldn't be. That's been my effort to try to devolve back, whether it's funding for education. I don't think we should have a U.S. Department of Education. We do. We've only had it since 1976. What did we do before that? Some would say we had better education back when the local school districts controlled what went on. Let me finish my question.
You know where I'm going on.
I have no idea. But
Yes.
we had the opportunity to say, this is what my student needs, and the school board and the administration and the teachers determine that. Then we have a state board of education. In '76, we expanded the U.S. Department of Education. I think we stepped backwards. So now we're turning back. We've devolved much of the career training, job training back to the states and locals through WIA and other things, trying to get, I don't know necessarily what Flint's students need. I don't live there. I live in the Onstead School District. I may know better what they need than even Adrian. And that's where it ought to be. We have put all sorts of mandates coming from the federal level. We're trying to take those, roll them away, and downsize completely. So the level of government is important to understand, but I am elected to represent you at the federal level. I serve on the Education and Labor Committee. I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee. I serve on the Subcommittee for Energy and Subcommittee for Telecommunications, all of which have a lot to do in my district that I represent. Being the energy district of the state, 35% of all the energy is produced in the 7th district. Consumers Energy is located in the 7th district. DTE has its biggest plants in my district, including nuclear, coal, gas, solar, wind. All of that is here. So anyway, I can only answer questions that I have purview over as a federal official. And any of those I'll be glad to try to answer or get one of my staff to help me out.
But as a student, it's exciting that you are here and engaging in this process. We can continue to do that and do it at all different levels of government.
Mr. Walberg, what can be done in the Congress to allow gene therapy to become more available to the populace?
Specifically?
Yes, most specifically for cancer treatment. I know the Right to Try bill was
We
passed
passed that.
a year ago, was it?
Yeah. President loves to talk about that. Sunday.
Yeah. Things still seem to be progressing slowly. Is there still regulation preventing genetic cures from being produced?
Well, I know the National Institutes of Health are studying it. We gave more funding to NIH. That happened at the very end of Obama's administration, 21st Century Cures Act. It was something that my colleague and friend, then he was chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Fred Upton, pushed for 6 years, and we finally passed it. It had a mental health component, a major mental health component as well. but that put dollars toward those type of things. And I believe over time, when you can deal with funding issues, regulatory issues, ethical issues, gene therapy or anything else can be found useful. So sometimes it moves slowly, but again, remember, the United States is about the only country doing all this research.
Thank you.
If you new with a question, we'll come back to you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I heard what you said about bipartisan bills being passed, 300 and everything, how good the economy is. But, and the Republican Party always used to be about the rule of law and strong national defense, you know, protecting it. Talk about Trump's corruption. Everything he does and divisions in the country. I mean, you guys are afraid to say anything because you're afraid to get primary. And,
I'm not.
well, maybe you're not, but a lot of them are. So you go along with a lot, you know, him stealing money from what the, what is it, what they just settled. What?
Are you talking about the Ukrainian thing?
Well, I'm talking about that, but, you know, the settlement where he just had to pay $2 million because he collected all this money and spent it on himself in Ukrainian.
Remember, that's under appeal. It hasn't been finalized.
Well,
The court of law will finalize it.
okay, Trump University, I mean, before the election and everything. And the Ukrainian deal. I mean, come on. You heard all the fact witnesses.
Name me one impeachable offense that's come out. That one of the fact witnesses said was an impeachable
I
offense.
read the transcript like he had asked us.
No, I'm asking him. He was the one asking the question.
Okay, holding up,
What is one impeachable offense that came out in the investigation so far?
we'll find out. Okay, chime in.
Thank you. The one impeachable offense is everything that Dr. Hill and Taylor Morrison, Vindman, all them coming forward, they all connected. There were firsthand people that understood what was going on, Sodoman.
What was the impeachable offense?
It was a pretty pro quo.
Did they say it was a quid pro
No,
quo?
this
Bribery?
was in the hearing. They literally
They laid
heard
it
from,
out.
yeah, it was, you have to do this or you're not gonna get it. They didn't even care if it was going to be
Who said that?
followed through.
Who-
Soderman or
No,
Soderman.
under cross-examination, he refuted that. He said the only thing the president said to him, it was quoted. It actually was quoted in the fake news. It was actually quoted.
What
Fox,
did you say
I don't
fake
watch
news?
Fox.
No, this wasn't Fox. This was
I know, Fox is the only one that is his trumpeter.
What president said to me under cross-examination, he said, the only thing that the president said was that I don't want anything.
Well,
I don't want anything. Tell Zelensky to do the right thing.
oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was
You
interesting.
guys should have a little common sense.
Dr. Hill begged you guys not to use Russian.
It was interesting for the response when, I think it was the first day, with Taylor. Who was with Taylor? Kent. It was one of the last questioners. I think it was Curtis, John Curtis. Anyway, asked point blank, okay, either of you, can you name an impeachable offense?
Bribery.
No, I'm going to give you
It was
their
for
answer.
personal gain.
Their answer. He said, can you name an impeachable
They weren't
offense?
there.
They're not lawyers.
Can
They
you
were
name-
only there as fact witnesses. They're not there to,
They
When
can't
the
be
cops
their
pull up to an
opinion.
accident, they
Remember-
don't ask the guy that
remember
witnessed
in the
it,
law-
was this a murder?
Remember, the law about fact witnesses mean you have to be a witness of fact. None of those were fact witnesses. They have heard things.
okay,
Even the so-called whistleblower is not a fact witness.
why won't Trump let any of the firsthand people testify?
Innocent men do that all the time.
When the president is allowed to have his attorney in the room to cross-examine, and you have actual due process, I think the president would allow that.
Okay, you're talking about due process. They were in that, what's that room, 3 floors down?
Intelligence.
Okay.
Committee room.
How many Republicans were in there? 40?
Yeah.
Asking questions alongside with them?
Yes.
Why isn't that due process? Why do you guys say it's a secret when it's not?
Well, they weren't allowed to talk to us outside of that room.
Yeah, because
Republican rules.
because
Republican
that's a rule, so
rules.
there isn't any leaks, right?
Remember, the majority party is Democrat, they set the rules.
No, they did not. They are using the same rules that have been used by
Ma'am?
the Republicans.
Did you vote on those rules?
I voted for Democrats.
No, did you vote on those rules? Well, then you didn't.
Exactly.
No, you didn't, because if you're in this district, you didn't vote for Democrat.
No, I know, I got you.
You got me.
I know.
Life isn't fair.
Well, no, it addresses corruption.
The bottom line
You
is,
got the Republicans.
the bottom line is, so far, no one on the witness stand has been able to give an example, even an example, of an actual impeachable offense. They've said that.
Well, why won't we let the first-hand witnesses talk?
Well, they will say the same thing, there's no impeachable offense.
So let them talk, let them testify.
Let due process take place and they'll do
That
that.
is due process.
Yes, let them.
Not until you can have the president, who's the guy who's being challenged, have his attorney in the room as well. It's not due process. You go in the court of law across the street, and you'll see the defendant, and you'll see the prosecutor. And the defendant, who would be Trump in this case, would have an attorney at his side. You don't have that.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
My question is, last year, we spent $1 trillion nationally on welfare programs, and I'm wondering if there's any reform that is going through for welfare?
Not this term. It couldn't get through. We tried to get that through on one area, last term. It was called TANF reform, food stamp reform. All we were saying is, in order to get your food stamps, we're going to take them away. You had to perform 20 hours of work or go to an educational setting, just what the state of Michigan is doing. And we did very successfully back in the 90s here in the state of Michigan before succeeding governor took that out. All we say is, listen, if you're able-bodied, capable of work, we're not going to take away your TANF or your food stamp, but we're not going to give it to you unless you're at least willing to carry part of your load. Why? Why do we want you to do that? Because you're going to miss the American dream. I mean, why do we want to continue encouraging people through a perverse incentive to not experience all that America offers? If you aren't able-bodied, if you're down on your luck for a while, if you're injured for a while, there ought to be a social safety net. Don't ever quote me otherwise. I believe there ought to be a social safety net, but for able-bodied, employable adults without aged problem or young children that can't leave at home, the rest ought to be at least performing 20 hours of work. We couldn't get that through Chuck Schumer.
Well, yeah, I saw that there was 8 states that actually paid more on welfare than the average teacher's salary.
Well, I don't think that's in Michigan, but
Well, it's 8 states. It was not Michigan.
with all of the benefits, Medicaid, food stamps, etc., even here in Michigan, they make better.
It's around
Employed
$29,000 a year, tax-free.
So
Plus you get tax-free credits, then you get a tax refund for taxes you never paid.
That's an incentive. That's an incentive to not work. And I say that's immoral. We are discouraging people from experiencing what America offers to them. And once they do it, I'll never forget the testimony of a young woman, single parent, who under our plan back under England, when I was in the State House, we went to what we called it work fair, edu-fair. And we simply required that in order to continue receiving your welfare assistance, if you're able-bodied, you either had to work, I forget the number of hours it was probably around 20 hours, or you had to go to some training setting, school, etc., to get upgraded so you could get that job. This young lady, at first she said, I thought that was an assault on me as a human being. once I got into it, I found out that now I had a job. And I could tell my kids, Mommy bought that. And I could walk through a checkout line and not have people looking at me as I handed my food stamps. And knowing the fact that I was participating, it changed my whole life. I think that could happen to a lot of people. If they're not able-bodied, if they're infirm, if they're elderly, or if they have a home situation with kids that they can't do that, okay, I'm willing. I'm willing to have that social safety net stable. But the majority aren't that way. And I think we need to change it for the good of this country. This is too good of a place. My son-in-law, who's not from this country, doesn't live in this country. My daughter, he, and their 2 grandkids live in another country. When he comes here, he says, I don't know how you can't make it in America. If somebody can't make it in America, they can't make it anywhere. And he lives in a third world country. And he goes back to that third world country where he's an entrepreneur. Pull himself up from the bootstraps. Originally having to flee a country or being macheted. And he looks at America and says, wow, man, if you can't make it here, Dad, you can't make it anywhere. Why is anybody complaining? Yes, sir.
In response to that, working, 40, 80 hours a month, whatever, I've got a brother, he just turned 60. He's stage 4 Parkinson's. His wife just turned 60 the same month, August. She's a paraplegic, bedridden. They got sent notices, either they go to work or they get cut off.
Last year.
They proved that they're unable. They got cut down to $23 a month in food stamps. And then I found out just not here too long ago that the care workers that state run come in and
Not
stole.
state run, it was a private company.
But anyhow, a private company come in, stole his bank card, empties the bank account, and spent all the food stamps and stuff. That's sickening.
Well, that's illegal too. Criminal.
But can they get a boost, or do you think $23?
Please contact my office. I can't tell you.
Well, it's just,
My
I
mom's
do
son
know,
got the same thing.
Yeah, I can't tell you if you have a concern like that. And in this case, what you're telling me the story is totally disabled,
Yes.
paraplegic, and stage 4, I assume can't work.
no.
Right, he's had the brain stimulations, he just had to have his bladder taken out.
Again,
Parkinson's got him.
bureaucracy, this is why, I don't know why people want Medicare for all. Medicare can't take care of its own things. But you get with this with the government, it could be a genuine mistake, and our office would be glad to check into that for you.
You got information on that? 'Cause my mom's got the same thing, she got 2 bad.
My office staff is right here, just make sure you give the contact information, and either we can get in contact or they can call our
Trying to fix
office.
it. She still has.
And we do this type of stuff all the time. We found mistakes with Social Security, we found mistakes with Veterans Administration, we found mistakes with Medicare, so it doesn't surprise me. And it could be with all this. But we're glad to take a look at it.
Any questions from anybody that hasn't spoke yet?
Yes, sir.
I had an immigration question, but your office is working on that. Billy Lawson.
Billy, okay.
Yeah, she's working on that case.
Well, she'll work hard
Yeah.
on it.
So my brother, he filed for the kids coming from India, and he expired. So that file has been, discontinued, he approved and everything, and Billy already filed for the humanitarian reinstatement. I don't know how long.
And you'll be the sponsor of these
Yeah,
kids,
I'm
your brother's
sponsor,
kids. Yeah.
So she's working on that part.
Well,
Thank you.
don't hesitate to keep calling her. She doesn't mind,
Thank you.
and she can report to you on that. Because a situation like that, where they were approved already, come to be with their
Right,
parent.
yeah. That file been approved, they waited for 12, 13 years, and then, he passed away. So she gave me the way, how you can apply, which I did. Yeah. Thank you.
We'll trust that it works out. Get the family back together.
Any question? All right, yep, right.
Sorry, I didn't fill out the card.
Got the Christmas sweater on already.
Yeah,
Good for you.
Thanksgiving.
I've got an ugly one. That's not an ugly one.
Yeah. I was just wondering if there's any, there's a lot of division in Congress and across the nation. I was just wondering if there are any ideas that the Democrats have that you personally support, or if you know any Democrats that support some of your ideas. Like,
Yeah.
what are some things that people are?
A lot of areas in environmental issues, Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, opioid, heroin abuse bills, veterans bills, senior bills. Yeah, we've worked together on a lot of those. In fact, it might encourage you, though I'm still ranked the most conservative member of the Michigan delegation by my voting record. I'm now going 11 years. And I'm proud of it. I didn't lie to people when I ran for office. I said I'm a conservative. I also said I'm Washingtonian. I don't believe, just like Washington, that we ought to have parties, but we have parties. The Democrats certainly, as they're going now, aren't anywhere near my perspective on what government ought to do. So Republican Party is the party I find my home in. But being the most conservative member of the Michigan delegation, and probably in the top 25 of the entire Republican, or the entire House, I also ranked, according to the Center for Legislative Effectiveness, for the last term, that's the most recent term they've evaluated, the 115th Congress, I was rated the most effective member of the Michigan delegation, Republican side, out of 233 members most effective. And that was based upon the fact that the number of bipartisan bills I either sponsored or co-sponsored, number of bills that were passed and signed into law, and the strength of the committees in which I sat. Debbie Dingell and I have worked on a lot of bills together. I've sponsored hers. I've sponsored and she's co-sponsored. She's sponsored, I've co-sponsored. Alyssa Slotkin, new member up who took Mike Bishop's seat. We've worked together. We've done town halls together, veterans fairs together. Speaking of Flint, Dan Kildee and I, we sponsored. I was the prime co-sponsor of his Flint water bill, the first one that was put up after all that went out. And so, yeah, we do work together. But there are some things we can't work on. And I'd like to tell you as well that most of us aren't in each other's throats. That comes out in the news. We aren't as divided. Every Thursday, I meet with a congressional prayer breakfast that's gone on for 75 years. It's bipartisan. A member from New York is a co-chairman with a member from Michigan. I'm not that member. And so things like that take place. We go out to dinner together. We fight on the floor at times, boisterously, then it's over. We do our thing, same with committees. But that doesn't make news. That doesn't make news.
It should.
It should. And that's why we're glad we have local news at times, because that's capable of doing something like that. But the national media, and you've heard me if you've been to town hall meetings of mine before, I don't like Fox News all that much either. There are times when I've sat in a committee of jurisdiction, that they're reporting on what went on, and I think to myself, I've even said it to my wife, where was I today? I thought I was in that committee. That's not how it went. So that's the challenge. But there are differences of opinion. That's how this country is. That's why we have an election. That's why the election in 2016 should have been honored.
It is honored.
The president was elected.
Yes.
And now you're trying to do away with it.
If you quit doing criminal things.
Yeah, because of the corruption.
Well, bottom line,
Excuse me.
there is no corruption until it's proven. And it's not.
They started to act.
Go back to Mueller. Go back to Mueller. Now we brought that up again. What was the outcome of Mueller?
Bill Barson's page summary.
Yeah, Bill Barr.
Mueller sat
Desensitized
in
everyone.
front and was interviewed himself. No corruption. Collusion. Okay, so now let's go try something else.
Now it's coming out that.
And of course, we don't end up talking much about Hunter and Joe, do we? Who
Do not
actually,
go with the Russian.
who
talking
actually
point.
did quid pro quo. Who actually did, and we got
Hold
a
it,
video
say
of
the
Joe
facts.
bragging
Where's the
about it.
facts?
Joe bragging about it.
Where's the facts?
It's a Russian.
A
talking
video he
point.
did.
Where's the facts?
It's a video that he did.
We got it on video that Trump No.
You don't have Trump on
He
video.
talked to Zelensky.
You don't have Trump on video.
Yeah,
And he gave you the transcript.
and it shows it.
And he gave you the
It
transcript.
shows it.
No quid pro quo.
It shows it.
You didn't read the transcript then.
I did.
I read everything you read.
I did.
You didn't read it.
Parisha
Well,
and Biden were mentioned.
I'll ask you, after you make an appointment, sit with one of my staffers, they can work you through it. Next question.
First off, I'd like to say, on everybody's side here, this is literal truth. My friend ran care in Africa. His wife is senior advisor to the UN High Commission on Refugees. He called me to say, on the day Trump was elected, he called me from Denmark to say, don't worry, it'll be over soon. Given that, I still want to tell you, everybody here, this gentleman, one of the finest people I know, trusts you, and therefore I'm here. But there's nobody that is, honestly people, there's nobody that's more against Mr. Trump than me in the entire planet. But you have the right to sit here and speak. We have the right to explain and wonder about things. But the biggest thing I went 55,000 miles this year traveling the country. I see big flags over mega farms, no people. I see little town halls. I used to be able to go and count on getting food from local people. KC General Stores, Dollar Generals. The little guys are gone. All these little towns, 2005 I went to, I loved. They're gone now.
Because corporations get better deals.
It just doesn't matter. It's the innovation of the American people has to come back. There are people that, they're losing land. Now, I want family farms feeding local people. I want family farms being sold in stores. I want family restaurants. I want things back, like we're talking about the local. I want to build that up. And I have a friend of mine, a hidden gem out here in Carlton. Their family is a delightful family. You might even have met them. They have a business. He says, seems like business stops, or economy stops at 223. I love south of here, the Great Swamp. I love farm country, more than you could possibly imagine. I've never considered Nebraska boring. But I want to see people on those farms. When I was a kid, I drove around and looked at all the little gardens and little farms. I see these big houses, 5 people in it where there used to be 30. Now, we got people, you're talking about welfare, Mr. Walberg. Let them work on the farms. Let's get people back. Let's get our...
Well, let me respond to that as well, and we have to move on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to babble on. I babbled and rambled.
But things change. We don't have telephone operators anymore. I was a young boy when we were using telephone operators. We don't have buggy whips. A lot of things we don't have anymore. We move on. I spent summers on a family farm of 226 acres. My uncle raised 6 kids on, sent them all to college. Couldn't do that now. Until the American people in general want to pay to keep those small family farms operating, it's not going to happen.
Well, we got to do something.
And we want what we want, and that's how it works here. Innovation takes place. I was at a business today that I brought the Secretary of Labor to, who said, listen, we could hire 35 more people right now. We've got contracts we're not able to complete because we don't have enough employees to do it. We can't find them to do it. We've got up in Mackinac City, St. Ignace, and on Mackinac Island, they're shutting down restaurants, and even the Grand Hotel is ultimately being challenged to the point they sold it to a company. The family that's owned it for years and years sold it. Why? Because it's hard to get employees. And that's where immigration reform has to take place. So we have legal immigrants coming across here to fill some of those jobs who are willing to do it. And welfare reform that says, okay, if you don't want to work on that farm, fine. But you're able-bodied, you're capable, So you make your choice, either you work on the farm, or you don't get the food
So the
stamps.
farm has to be there for them.
So, I mean, that's the challenge they have. So this business that I was talking about, what they had to do is buy 3 new machines, 600,000 plus each, that takes the place of some of those 35 jobs, that if they had the people fill them, they could do it. But they still have to provide the contracts. So that's what we're looking at. And I think the company I was with today would have rather had those 35 human beings than have to spend
No, I would.
600 plus thousand apiece to bring it in from Italy. This machine that'll do an amazing, amazing job, but doesn't employ anybody else. Now, they didn't cost any jobs. Didn't cost any jobs. But it also was put in place because we have a system here where people think, if I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. My dad never trained me that way. And I remember the jobs I worked at, there were a number that I didn't want to do. But I did it. It got me through college. Enabled me to buy a wedding ring for my wife. And we did what we had to do. So
So I joined the service and started
that's a
some
challenge.
work.
Service great things.
What factory was that?
U.S. Steel, Southworks, south side of Chicago, #2 electric furnace. That was one of them.
That's the one you went to?
That was one of them. No, I went to plenty of jobs. I worked at a gas station.
No, I'm talking about the one you took the Secretary of Labor to.
Yeah.
What factory was that?
It was in Jackson. It was Classic Turning. Expanded, just built new facilities. They want to hire more people. Can't find them.
What do they do?
All sorts of things for the aerospace industry, for automotive. It's machine work. I mean, it's amazing stuff they do. This stuff is like surgical, like jewelry that they turn out.
Locally owned and operated.
Locally owned and
There
operated.
you go.
Locally owned and operated. I could tell you of plants all across this 7th district that are crying for people to come and fill spots that are there. Good jobs, with benefits, living wage jobs. Living wage jobs. We've got to pick up our speed here. And we've got to get our friends and neighbors and our kids to understand, listen, this is America. You don't have to be in that job the rest of your life, but you better start there or find something better. Yeah, yes, sir.
Is it that people aren't applying, or they aren't qualified, or in?
All of the above. They aren't applying. And some, when they apply, aren't qualified. They haven't had the education for it. They haven't taken up on it. And then many, it's the soft skills. They don't show up for the second day of job. Or they can't pass a drug test.
Probably have.
And so here in Michigan, we, I say wrongly so, passed recreational marijuana.
Yes, that's good.
And we've got people, I know a plant down in Hudson, sign on its door, hiring, apply inside, unless you can't pass a drug test.
I know quite a few people that are going to leave their factory jobs to work for the marijuana growers. They pay better.
And we'll see how that works for the rest of us. So,
What's your stance on Social Security? What are you doing to make it better for everyone?
All the
well, the moment I say I want to reform Social Security, my Democrat colleagues will be out and saying that I'm pushing Graham over the cliff. And anytime we say that Social Security is in a problem state, as is Medicare, that's been in deficit spending since 2010, and I'm on Medicare. So
Why does the government keep taking money out of Social
Experience.
Security?
we're not.
Bush did.
We're not. What's happened there?
He pulled 7.7
We
trillion out there.
need more people working and paying into it. Because
I've
us
worked all my life paying into it.
baby boomers are going out of it. And all of a sudden, there'll be less people working to pay for what we used to have 10 people paying for. Now we have 4 people or 2 people paying for. So that's one of the things. And fortunately, with the growth in the economy we have right now, we have more going into Social Security Trust Fund. But down the road, we need to realize that Social Security was never meant to pay for SSI. It was never meant to pay for Medicare. It was only to be a small supplement for your retirement years.
Didn't Nixon put in Medicare?
Government put it in.
Nixon?
I don't believe it was Nixon.
I believe it was Nixon.
It was John Dingell's father, I know, whatever administration it was. And the bottom line is, we need to fix it. And so I've introduced legislation that we can't get to the president's desk that would put a lockbox around Social Security trust funds so that indeed, in the future, nothing could be removed from Social Security trust fund except for Social Security and Medicare. Black box proposal. We need to find a means by which we can maybe increase the Social Security age limit. We're living a lot longer than we used to. There are people that are now on Social Security and retired for 25, 30 years.
I'm seeing people work till they're 65. 3 months later, they drop dead.
Yeah.
Factories are killing them. You haven't been out there in the factory studying. I know, I work 12 hours, 7 days a week for 5 years straight. That wears you out.
Well, I can imagine that. But there are other jobs you could take too.
Not that paid.
Well, that's a choice you make. I worked at U.S. Steel. I worked at U.S. Steel Southworks.
UPNs except one.
1969-70. So I know what the factory is. Don't tell me I don't know. I worked tough jobs as well. I heated my house with wood when I was married, my first
Have you done it all your
7
life?
years. Hey, I chose not to.
His knees
I chose not to.
replacing, he's had to have back surgery.
Okay, what I'm saying is, listen,
It tears the body
in
down.
America, you make your choices. That's the beauty of America, right?
I thought you guys were for the workers.
That's a beauty. We are. I want you to have a job that fits you best. I want you to have a job that you can expand your life with.
Then why are you still taking Social Security? If they want to pull it away from everybody, quit taking it out.
Who wants to pull it away? Name me one person that wants to pull away Social
That's
Security.
all I hear about. We're going to
Yeah,
report
you're hearing
Social
it.
Security and take it away.
You're hearing it. You're hearing it because it works politically. That's why they showed Paul Ryan pushing Graham over the cliff. No, he was trying to fix it so you wouldn't lose Social Security. And I mean, that's the issue we have to deal with, folks. So wait a second, let me finish it. I want to say thank you for each of you being here. Whether you believe the facts or not, thanks for being here. If it's your facts that work for you, fine. But I hope that you're willing to take a look at a bigger picture and understand that this country, we make decisions based upon the will of the majority. I'm not happy I'm in the minority of the House. I thought we did great work for 8 years in the majority. But the will of the people said, we're going to take you out. And it took place. We elected a president in 2016 by the will of the people.
In Russia.
They knew. Oh, come on.
I
You don't believe your intelligence agencies?
No.
You don't
No,
believe your
Russia, China, and other countries. Whoa, wait, let me finish.
Do you believe
Russia, China, and all
did
the
it?
rest are going to be trying to get into our elections. You can expect that. I know that they are.
Trump's inviting them to do it.
But no.
Hillary.
Folks, we're going to end on that. Marty, do you have something to say?
I do. Just a comment. I don't think it's controversial. The tree lighting.
In this group, it may be.
The tree lighting tonight is at 6 o'clock out on the front lawn here of the old courthouse.
That's great.
And certainly anybody that would like to come and observe that is welcome to do so.
And Russia's not involved with it, right? Tonight, you got a tree lighting. Enjoy it. The season, Thanksgiving season, great time. Christmas coming up. This is a great country. God has blessed it. And I pray that you feel that blessing as well.